Hello, marvelous viewers! No doubt most of us watched at least one film during our childhood that felt a little too terrifying to be real, but speaking of my own childhood, I watched dozens of films that scared the living daylights out of me, and that was partly because my dad loved DVDs, CDs, and old cassettes. Every time a new film came out, we didn't always rush to the theater. Instead, my dad would visit a store and return with another disc for the collection. My mom, of course, hated this because, in her view, CDs, cassettes, and stacks of DVDs were just expensive objects collecting dust, but I can't be the only one who misses DVD culture. I also can't be the only one whose childhood nostalgia is tied to strange movies that were technically made for younger audiences, but still gave us nightmares. Some of these titles remain famous today, and others have developed cult followings, but compared with the biggest family movies of the decade, many of these films aren't discussed nearly enough by modern viewers. That's exactly why we're bringing you this video. Today we're covering 12 near-perfect 80s kid horror movies that frightened, fascinated, and emotionally damaged an entire generation. Some are genuine horror films aimed partially at children, others are dark fantasies, animated adventures, science fiction comedies, or family movies containing horror imagery, but all of them messed with our minds when we were kids. It's going to be a fascinating list, so without any further ado, let's get right into it. The Monster Squad, 1987. The first kids' horror film on our list is, of course, The Monster Squad. If you're a fan of Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, the Wolfman, the Mummy, and the creature from the Black Lagoon, you probably already know what kind of a chokehold this film could take on a young horror fan. Personally, The Monster Squad helped introduce me to the larger world of classic monster cinema. The film now has a devoted cult following, but it was a commercial disappointment during its original theatrical release. It reportedly earned only a fraction of its budget and became more widely appreciated through home video and television releases. That makes it the perfect example of a cult classic, a movie that failed to find a full audience at the time, but refused to disappear over the years. And honestly, The Monster Squad is close to a perfect gateway horror movie for children who are beginning to become fascinated with monsters. It's a loving tribute to classic monster cinema mixed with a massive dose of 1980s kid adventure energy. The creature designs and makeup effects were produced by Stan Winston's studio, giving Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, the Wolfman, the Mummy, and the Gill-Man updated appearances without losing what made them iconic. Add some humor, flying monsters, exploding supernatural creatures, and a group of children attempting to stop Dracula from taking over the world, and you've got something truly special on your hands. But this movie isn't entirely silly. One of its more moving moments involves the man initially called the Scary German Guy. The children gradually discover that he's a Holocaust survivor after seeing the concentration camp number tattooed on his wrist. When one of the children tells him that he really knows a lot about monsters, he quietly replies that he supposes he does. It's a brief moment, but it gives the word monster a far more painful meaning than Dracula or the Wolfman ever could. We could go on and on about how iconic this film has become over the years, but that would be a little self-indulgent. So just imagine being a child again and watching a gang of kids fight Dracula while Frankenstein's monster becomes their friend. I mean, come on, that's pure 80s cinema magic. The Gate from 1987. Everyone hail Scarifix and the Dark Book because the second film on our list is none other than The Gate. The Gate isn't literally forgotten, especially among horror fans, but it's far less famous today than movies like Gremlins or The Lost Boys, and that's kind of unfortunate because it remains one of the most effective gateway horror movies from that era. I don't remember exactly how old I was when I watched this movie for the first time, but I know one thing for sure, it scared the hell out of me. The eyeball in the palm, the dead construction worker bursting through the wall, and those tiny demonic creatures all felt like images taken from a fever dream. The story follows two boys who accidentally open a supernatural gateway in a suburban backyard. That doorway releases small demons and increasingly disturbing supernatural threats. The movie has sometimes been described as a horror-flavored cousin of The Goonies. That comparison makes sense because it places children in the middle of a dangerous adventure without turning them into invincible action heroes. Now that we're adults, the scare factor may feel tamer, but that doesn't reduce the creativity of the practical effects, forced perspective work, stop-motion animation, and puppetry. The small creatures weren't created through modern computer-generated effects. The filmmakers used physical techniques to place full-sized performers and miniature-looking demons within the same frame. The result still has a tactile quality that gives the monsters weight and personality. The gate runs for roughly 85 minutes, meaning it never overstays its welcome. It's fast, creepy, imaginative, and just gruesome enough to make younger viewers feel as though they're watching something they probably shouldn't be allowed to. Streaming availability changes by region, but the film has appeared on free ad-supported services including Tubi in some territories. So check your local listings before the gate closes for good. Invaders from Mars, 1986. The third film on our list is Invaders from Mars. Obviously, we're not talking about the original 1953 film, we're talking about Tobe Hooper's 1986 remake. This version was a box office disappointment and received mixed reviews, but it's developed a cult audience over the years. There are several reasons why it struggled, though. The dialogue can be corny. The tone moves between childhood nightmare, paranoid science fiction, broad comedy, and expensive monster spectacle. And yes, Tobe Hooper directed more celebrated horror films, but Invaders from Mars still possesses the unsettling logic of a nightmare. The story follows a boy named David who sees a spacecraft land near his home. After his father investigates, he returns behaving strangely. Soon, teachers, police officers, and other adults begin acting like emotionless versions of themselves. For a child, that idea is terrifying. What happens when the adults who are supposed to protect you are no longer themselves? The film gives us horrifying imagery, including Mrs. McKelch being swallowed by a Martian creature and the gigantic alien drones stalking the underground base. The ending also deliberately plays with the possibility that David's nightmare may be beginning all over again. One fascinating production fact involves the Martian drone suits. The filmmakers wanted the creatures to move in ways that didn't resemble ordinary actors walking inside costumes. The design, therefore, used two performers positioned together. A full-size performer helped move the body and longer limbs, while a smaller puppeteer helped operate the creature's face and shorter arms. That unusual arrangement gave the drones their strange, unbalanced movement. Invaders from Mars is uneven, but it's also colorful, imaginative, and genuinely disturbing from a child's perspective. Ghostbusters 2, 1989. The fourth film on our list is Ghostbusters 2. Now, calling the sequel to Ghostbusters Forgotten would obviously be ridiculous. The franchise remains enormous even today. But Ghostbusters 2 is frequently overshadowed by the original movie, and people sometimes forget how frightening certain parts of the sequel are. The film reunited director Ivan Reitman with Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, Ernie Hudson, Sigourney Weaver, Rick Moranis, and Annie Potts. The central threat is Vigo the Carpathian, a medieval tyrant and sorcerer whose spirit lives inside a painting. And honestly, that painting alone is nightmare fuel. Then there's the abandoned subway sequence. Ray, Egon, and Winston enter the underground tunnels while investigating the River of Slime. Winston is struck by a ghost train, and the group is confronted by visions of severed heads mounted on spikes. For a supposed family comedy, that sequence arrives with almost no warning. The movie also gives more material to Winston, Louis Tully, and Janine Melnitz than the original. Louis even attempts to act as the Ghostbusters lawyer and later puts on a spare proton pack during the finale. Ghostbusters 2 doesn't have the freshness of the first film, and its structure deliberately echoes several beats from the predecessor, but it remains an entertaining supernatural comedy with creepy imagery, memorable supporting characters, and one of cinema's most sinister haunted paintings. It deserves to be remembered as more than merely a sequel to one of the greatest horror comedies of all time. Killer Klowns from Outer Space, 1988. The next film on our list is Killer Klowns from Outer Space, and it's probably the weirdest entry on this list. The core concept is exactly what the title promises. A group of extraterrestrial predators that resemble circus clowns lands near a small town and begins harvesting human beings. The aliens trap victims inside cotton candy cocoons, use popcorn as living ammunition, create lethal balloon animals, and kill people with circus-themed weapons. The movie is intentionally ridiculous. The performances can be broad, the dialogue is proudly corny, and the plot functions like a 1950s alien invasion movie filtered through 1980s practical effects madness. But the filmmakers commit completely to the concept. You get acidic pies, a murderous shadow puppet, a popcorn gun, a giant clown spaceship, and a police officer being used as a ventriloquist dummy after his death. The townspeople don't initially understand the danger because everything the clowns do resembles a twisted circus performance. Eventually, the young heroes team up with police officer Dave Hansen and the Terenzi brothers, who drive an ice cream truck while trying to warn the town. The film has developed a major cult following and has inspired merchandise, theme park attractions, and a video game, so it's no longer accurate to say nobody remembers it, but it still deserves a place on this list because mainstream conversations about 80s family-friendly horror often ignore just how inventive and grotesque it was. Paperhouse, 1988. Our next film is Paperhouse, one of the most interesting entries on this list. It was directed by Bernard Rose, who later made Candyman, and it was adapted from Catherine Storr's novel Marianne Dreams. Paperhouse is not a conventional children's horror film. It's a British dark fantasy about loneliness, illness, imagination, family trauma, and the frightening point where dreams begin to influence reality. The story follows Anna, a troubled young girl who draws a house. When she falls asleep, she enters the world of that drawing and discovers a disabled boy named Mark living inside it. The more Anna changes the picture, the more the dream world changes. What begins as an escape gradually becomes threatening, especially when Anna draws an image connected to her absent and frightening father. The film's power comes from the contrast between childhood imagination and emotional pain. Its dream world is visually simple but deeply unsettling. The empty landscape, isolated house, and distorted figures make the film feel like a nightmare created from a child's drawings. Charlotte Burke plays Anna and was reportedly chosen from approximately 1,500 girls who auditioned. To date, Paperhouse remains her only feature film acting role. Bernard Rose later recalled that Burke didn't continue acting because she was satisfied with what she had achieved in the film. Whether every detail of that story had been preserved perfectly over the years, her one-film career has added another strange layer to Paperhouse's reputation. It's not a mainstream crowd-pleaser like Ghostbusters. It's sadder, quieter, and psychologically heavier. That's exactly why it stays with the viewers who discover it. Return to Oz, 1985. Our next film is Return to Oz, a sequel to the 1939 Wizard of Oz film, but more accurately, a darker adaptation drawing primarily from L. Frank Baum's books The Marvelous Land of Oz and Ozma of Oz. Disney's film follows Dorothy after she returns home and becomes deeply troubled by her memories of Oz. Her aunt takes her to a clinic where doctors plan to subject her to electrotherapy. Dorothy escapes during a storm and eventually returns to Oz, only to discover that the Emerald City has been destroyed and its inhabitants turned to stone. That alone tells you that this isn't the colorful musical adventure audiences expected. Return to Oz gives us the Wheelers, Princess Mombi's collection of removable heads, the Gnome King, an asylum, electrotherapy equipment, and an entire kingdom transformed into a lifeless ruin. Walter Murch, an acclaimed editor and sound designer, made his feature directing debut with this film. Production was extremely difficult. Disney temporarily fired Murch after the schedule fell behind and executives became concerned about the footage and budget. Filmmakers including George Lucas and Francis Ford Coppola supported him, and Murch was eventually reinstated. Lucas reportedly assured Disney that he would help complete the film if further problems arose. Sadly, Return to Oz performed poorly during its initial theatrical release, but it gradually developed a devoted following. It's much closer to the darker atmosphere of Baum's books than many viewers were expecting. And for children who accidentally encountered Princess Mombi's screaming heads, it became the kind of movie they never completely forgot. The Neverending Story, 1984. At the time of production, The Neverending Story was reportedly the most expensive film ever made in the German film industry. Directed by Wolfgang Petersen and adapted from Michael Ende's novel, the movie follows Bastian, a lonely boy who discovers a mysterious book about the dying world of Fantasia. Inside that world, the young warrior Atreyu is sent on a quest to save the childlike empress and stop the destructive force known as the Nothing. The film is not considered a conventional horror movie. It's a family fantasy filled with frightening creatures, sadness, existential dread, and imagery capable of traumatizing younger viewers. And yeah, we need to talk about Artax. Atreyu's horse sinks into the swamp of sadness while Atreyu desperately begs him to keep moving. It remains one of the most devastating scenes in family film history. The sequence does more than kill an animal companion. The swamp gives physical form to despair. Once a person or animal gives into sadness, the ground pulls them under. The movie also features Gmork, the wolf-like servant of the Nothing, as well as the enormous statues known as the Sphinx Gate. Falkor, however, isn't a monster Atreyu fights. He's the friendly luck dragon who helps Atreyu and later rescues him. The Neverending Story works for children because it's an adventure. It works for adults because Fantasia's destruction represents the loss of imagination, hope, and emotional resilience. That's why the film can be comforting and terrifying at the same time. Gremlins, 1984. Now, let's be honest. Gremlins is neither forgotten nor a so bad it's good kind of movie. It was a major commercial success, received strong reviews, produced a sequel, and remains one of the defining horror comedies of the 1980s. But it belongs on this list because it represents the exact moment family entertainment became unexpectedly vicious. The story begins when Billy receives Gizmo, a small creature called a mogwai. There are 3 rules to owning a mogwai. Don't expose them to bright light, don't get him wet, and never feed him after midnight. Naturally, all 3 rules get broken, and evil clones of Gizmo begin to take over the town. The resultant gremlins drink alcohol, watch movies, attack residents of the town, murder people, and turn the small town of Kingston Falls into a Christmas nightmare. Billy's mother fights back in one of the more memorable sequences, killing gremlins using kitchen appliances. One gets blended, another is stabbed, another explodes inside a microwave. In fact, Stripe's final melting transformation is equally disgusting. The creature is exposed to sunlight and decomposes into a bubbling skeletal mess. Originally, Gizmo and Stripe were conceived as the same character, with the lovable Mogwai eventually becoming the villainous Gremlin. Steven Spielberg reportedly argued that the movie needed one creature audiences could continue loving, leading the filmmakers to keep Gizmo separate from Stripe. That decision worked. Gizmo became the emotional heart of the film. Another famous piece of trivia involves Kingston Falls itself. The town square was filmed on Universal's backlot and was later redressed as Hill Valley for Back to the Future. Gremlins helped to demonstrate that a family movie could be funny, charming, commercial, and legitimately frightening. Its violence also contributed to the industry conversation that led to the creation of the PG-13 rating in 1984. An American Tail, 1986. Well, not technically a horror film, many children remember An American Tail as an emotionally overwhelming animated nightmare. Directed by animation legend Don Bluth and produced by Steven Spielberg, the film follows Fievel Mouskowitz, a young Russian Jewish mouse who becomes separated from his family while emigrating to the United States. The movie uses cats and mice to explore immigration, prejudice, displacement, poverty, exploitation, and the false promise that America has no danger. Fievel arrives in New York alone. He encounters sweatshops, criminal exploitation, violent cats, dishonest adults, and children who have also been separated from their families. The giant mouse of Minsk sequence can be frightening, while the scenes involving cats attacking mouse communities are intense for younger viewers. Fievel was named after Steven Spielberg's grandfather, whose family emigrated from Eastern Europe. The immigrant experiences within the film drew inspiration from family stories and the broader history of Jewish immigration. However, specific claims that every scene directly recreated an incident from Spielberg's grandfather's life should be treated cautiously unless tied to a clear primary account. An American Tail became a major success and received an Academy Award nomination for the song Somewhere Out There, so once again, it's not literally a forgotten movie, but it is frequently reduced to one famous song when the actual film is far darker, sadder, and more politically aware than people give it credit for. Night of the Comet, 1984. Imagine I Am Legend transformed into a neon-lit 1980s horror comedy centered on 2 Valley Girl sisters. That should give you a rough idea about what Night of the Comet is. After Earth passes through the tail of a comet, most of humanity is reduced to red dust. People who were partially exposed begin turning into aggressive, deteriorating mutants. Sisters Regina and Samantha survive because they happen to spend the night inside steel-lined structures. They emerge into an abandoned Los Angeles and begin treating the apocalypse like an unexpected day off. The film is rated PG-13 rather than PG and includes violence, language, adult implications, and zombie-like mutants. So it's better suited to teenagers than very young children. Night of the Comet isn't especially graphic by modern standards, but its deserted city imagery creates an eerie feeling. The heroines explore empty streets, shop in abandoned stores, fight mutants, and eventually discover scientists who have less than honorable plans for the survivors. Allegedly, an early title for the film was Teenage Comet Zombies, with variations including Teenage Mutant Horror Comet Zombies appearing in production discussions and later trivia. There's also a frequently repeated story that Sharon Farrell genuinely slapped Kelly Maroney during the argument between Samantha and her stepmother because the stage slap wasn't producing the desired reaction. That moment may have helped create genuine shock, but calling it method acting at its finest would probably be giving an unscripted physical reaction far too much praise. Still, Night of the Comet is stylish, funny, strange, and far more influential looking today than its modest budget might suggest. The Black Cauldron, 1985. The final entry on our list today is The Black Cauldron, and yeah, this is an elite pull. Disney's animated dark fantasy is loosely based on the first two books in Lloyd Alexander's Chronicles of Prydain series. The story follows young Terran, a young assistant pig keeper who dreams of becoming a hero. His pig, Henwin, possesses magical powers that allow her to reveal hidden information. The terrifying Horned King wants to use Henwin to locate the Black Cauldron and raise an unstoppable army of undead soldiers known as the Cauldron Boar. The movie has a full orchestral score composed by Elmer Bernstein, but what makes it unusual is that it contains no traditional character-performed musical numbers. The Black Cauldron was also the first Disney animated feature to receive a PG rating. Its production became one of the most troubled periods in Disney animation history. During a test screening, several sequences involving the Cauldron-born reportedly frightened children. New studio chairman Jeffrey Katzenberg ordered disturbing footage removed despite resistance from members of the animation team. Those cuts, along with production complications, contributed to the film being delayed from its planned 1984 release until 1985. Sadly, the final movie was expensive and performed poorly at the box office. It wasn't permanently pulled from theaters because children were frightened, but Disney kept it unavailable on home video in the United States for many years, which contributed to its reputation as a hidden or neglected Disney film. The Horned King remains one of the studio's most frightening villains. His skeletal appearance, John Hurt's voice, and the resurrection of the Cauldron-born make the climax feel closer to a horror film than a traditional Disney fantasy. That said, The Black Cauldron isn't perfect. Its storytelling is rushed, characters disappear for long stretches, and the adaptation compresses too much material. But its atmosphere, animation, villain, and dark ambition make it impossible to dismiss. Regardless of whether these movies are genuinely forgotten, cult classics, or simply overshadowed by larger franchises, they still echo through our memories. Some scared us, some made us cry, some introduced us to monsters, death, loneliness, immigration, depression, and the frightening realization that adults couldn't always protect us. That's what makes 80s kid horror so special. These movies didn't treat younger viewers as though they were incapable of handling difficult concepts. They gave us danger, sadness, strange practical effects, terrifying villains, and emotional consequences, and for some reason, we loved them for it. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video as much as we enjoyed making it, and I dearly hope it motivated you to revisit at least one of these classics. We'd love to hear which film on this list is your favorite in the comments section down below, and we'd also like to know what forgotten or under-discussed 80s childhood nightmare we should have included, because we're sure we missed a few. I mean, that's why they're forgotten, after all. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to drop a like, share it with your friends, and send us your suggestions for future topics. And for more such marvelous videos, please subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon so that you never miss an update. Until next time, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and we'll see you in the next one.